So, welcome everyone. This is Sandeep Mitra here, your host for today's session. And like I was telling, all this time was about me and Rajat meeting after 30 years, thanks to this lockdown, and now getting associated in this August group of facilitators and trainers. So today's session is going to be conducted by Mr. Vasudev Murthy. He needs no introduction. As usual, I would, of course, give a little background that he's worked for almost 7 years in Wipro, heading global operations across functions. Subsequently, he started his own boutique consulting firm, which is by the name of Focal Concepts. And this firm focuses on proposal writing, consulting, creating digital strategy, training, both on skills and processes. He also happens to be a visiting professor in I am Bangalore, and he also is a consultant to many companies, most of them in the top 500. Besides that, he has this flair of writing, and he has authored many publications, some of which are obviously read very widely, even in international readers. So here's to having a very entertaining session for all of you. As usual, the rules, everybody will be on mute. And please keep your videos as well off for the time being to save on bandwidth unless you are speaking. And the second is that please type your questions in the chat box. This session is for 1 hour. However, to make it more interactive, we are trying to keep 15 minutes for question and answers, at the end of the session. And I'll give a reminder 5 minutes before the close to ensure that everybody is off. So may I request Soumya to keep all the microphones on mute, and I'll hand over the stage to Mr. Vasudev Murthy. Yes, Vasudev.
Hi guys, such a pleasure being here. Let me just share a slide. Can you guys see me? I hope you can. Sandeep, is it okay?
Yes, we can see you and hear you.
Sandeep, can you hear me?
Yes, we
Okay.
can hear
So
you,
thank you
Vasudev.
all.
You're good to go.
Okay. Such a pleasure having this fantastic audience. I will, as Sandeep says, keep it entertaining, and I will keep it hopefully brief and to the point. And I have two requests before we go. The request number one, I want you to think and very specifically be clear about a project that you are driving or you're about to start or you have an important role to be playing in. Because towards the end, I will teach you a little tool to help you to determine how successful your project is going to be from a change management perspective, right? So other than that, just keep an open mind, have some fun, and I'm sure before we know it, time will be up. Keep your questions. Sandeep will be my guide and friend, advising me on whether I'm talking too much, too fast, and ignoring any questions by the mistake. So with that, I will continue. Reconfirming, Mr. Chaudhary, can you hear me, sir? I can see one gentleman, that's Mr. Chaudhary. If you can unmute yourself, just confirm. Can you hear me? Okay. All right. He's saying something. All right. I can't hear you, sir, but I hopefully you can hear me. Okay. With that, let me just continue. So this is all about change management. It's a fun, beautiful, sophisticated subject, and the more you read about it, the more you understand it's an ocean that needs more and more exploration, and it's changing with the time, right? Just a few words of the intellectual gyan, if I may say. Uh, this is what Einstein says: our ability to change is determined based on circumstances. Sorry, you have someone sort of question? Okay, something happened. Excuse me. So, and obviously, and here's another very good one. I often use this whenever I teach my leadership sessions. Specifically, when the rate of change outside an organization is greater than the rate of change inside an organization, the end is near. Okay, so something that Jack Welch said, and essentially talks about the fact that if you guys are not agile enough and if you don't understand how to change and if the change process is not well managed, well essentially the end is near in terms of whether your organization will survive. Let's take a look. I hope to cover some of these things about change. Specifically, what are the barriers to change? What is change management? We talked about change is one of those words that intuitively everyone understands, but still, can you even manage it? Is it one of those things you just hope for the best? Of course, the answer is no. And who should drive change? And can we even measure change? Right? And as a fraternity of facilitators and people who interact with L&D, we really should be able to have within our ammunition things to help our clients appreciate the change that they're going to encounter very shortly. So obviously, this is something everyone's talking about. I find every article on LinkedIn, everything that we talk about starts immediately changing times, COVID-19. So I thought I'll do the same. Yeah, but I think this needs no real explanation, but I will do it anyway. I think in the past a month and a half, 2 months, everything has changed. Social norms, relationships, you can't even shake hands anymore. Forget about travel, mental health care. I mean, the number of people suffering from mental problems has gone up dramatically, right? But sports, well, I don't know, I haven't seen anyone running around on the field for a long time. The nature of governance has changed, right? And going into the areas that we touch upon, essentially organizations very okay, we have some background noise, Rajat. We need to mute some mic. Okay. Very basis for a company's existence, it's changing. In the sense, previously people talked about this quarter's earning, next quarter's, guidance and so on. All those things have completely been thrown out of the window, right? And obviously, we are now, many of us are hoping that we have the agility to devise new ways. Yesterday, for example, we had a brilliant talk by somebody, and he spoke about how everyone's now getting into, online education and training. Previously, to about 2080, in the sense of 20% of training was e-learning. But now, probably 100%. I can't even imagine. I mean, I've talked to a number of customers. Nobody wants to see me except on the video screen. But still, the training is going to continue to be important. And all businesses, on a very simple note, there used to be little restaurants and hotels that used to refuse to service us. They wouldn't deliver through Zomato or Swiggy. Now all of them do. Things like that. So there are lots of small and big changes that we have seen in our life. Work from home obviously is something that is taken for granted now. Okay, I'm getting some feedback. Can somebody mute their mic, please? Yeah. And obviously, education and training, which is where we all come in, is something that's changed drastically. We don't even know if there's going to be a new disruptor in the future. And I think all of us are now also thinking that probably will be. What will be the nature of that? We don't know. In brief, okay, there's some background noise. I'm requesting moderator to please mute the mic. Yeah. In brief, everything's changed. All the rules are out of the window, right? And so therefore, the timing of this little training program is right on top because we're dealing with substantial tsunami modifications to the way everything is done. And our ability to handle it in a sensible, mature way is what is being questioned right now, right? In some sense, this little picture is not a big deal. Okay, I'm getting a lot of background noise here. Okay, okay. This is a simple picture talking about how changes cascade in society, down to industry, to a company, down to you. But of course, changes can happen at any specific level, whether it's a company, industry. But ultimately, the person who is impacted by changes can be you, right? It will be you, in fact. And therefore, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Your question?
Can you please mute everybody because there's too much disturbance in that?
Yeah, I think someone requesting yeah. Okay, can we proceed now? So should I start all over again? Yeah, hopefully not. Okay. So I was just pointing out in this very simple slide that change cascades down from multiple levels, so it can be introduced at the industrial company. but the ultimate person is you. You are going to be impacted, and therefore I'm sounding out a warning that your relevance can end in seconds. Whatever you did, it was so glorious on your LinkedIn profile. You talked about all the wonderful things you did. Probably mean nothing right now. Sorry to hurt you, but basically, have you adapted now to this change and made any substantial changes instead of saying, I'm at this age, I can't do it. Those things is something you need to look at. And once again, because it's important to see that certain people with a high degree of intelligence have thought about this. If you look at what Charles Darwin said, it is not the strongest, the most intelligent, but the most responsive to change, who thrives and does well. So, as a group over here, I think it's our duty in a way to see that we can do all the changes that are required to thrive and survive. All right. Certainly, you're aware of this. Lifespans of companies have shrunk to about 18 years. Skills have changed dramatically. The things that you were interviewing for 10 years ago have changed, were different from what we interviewed for 6 months ago. And now the real question is, someone is asking something. I'm getting a lot of interruptions here. Uh, Skills have changed, and now going forward, what are the new skills that are going to be right? And certainly, I think your ability to, as facilitators and L&D professionals, our ability to conduct or make sure that people are trained and responsive and so on through the e-learning method. That is just one method, one yardstick by which to go ahead. And in this particular case, employee loyalty simply cannot be taken for granted. These things obviously raise 100 different issues like security and so on and so forth. Well, that's just the nature of bizarre times that we all live in right now. Okay? I think there is one mic still open. I'm going to request someone to do something about it. I find I am stuck. My is Kapil, I think this is annotating is not a good idea. So I'm going to have to stop for a moment.
Sir, I think you have given command to some control to someone else.
Okay, sir, no problem. Are you guys able to hear me? Let me take a quick poll. If anyone can say yes, you can hear me. Thank you, Sunita. Thank you, Avinash. Rovi, thank you. Okay. So I'm just setting the stage now for a little deeper dive into this whole phenomenon of change management. Yeah. And I'm going. So now that we've talked about change, you all are in the midst of one of the most, shall we say, unbelievable changes that we have experienced as a society. Let's see if you guys can be those change agents who are not swept away, rather you are controlling the whole process. So change management as a definition is just for you. It's a set of processes, tools, and techniques to manage the people side of change to achieve the required business outcome. But even if it's not the required business outcome, even if it's a personal change that you want to do, you still do need processes, tools, and techniques, right? So,
Vasudev, excuse
yes,
me, sorry to barge in. Can you
sure.
keep the mic a little closer to your mouth? I possibly need to, take it out or keep it a little closer.
Okay,
Thank
why
you.
don't I do this? How's this? Is it okay, Sandeep?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. All right. Let's proceed. Okay, so traditionally, if you are looking at organizations and the kinds of changes that they go through, you will find that there's always something new happening. There's always a new organization announcement. The CEO is really excited about something. If there's a new client, whatever. So here is just a very small partial list of possible changes that an organization goes through that you witness and that you may actually be affected by. So, for example, mergers and acquisitions. So, mergers and acquisitions, some of you know, but for those who don't know, it's about two organizations coming together because it makes sense for them to operate together, right? Maybe there's a new ERP system, and I have looked at many such situations where a new IT system was sought to be introduced. There was incredible resistance from everyone, and we know the reason why. But that's also one of the change that can be introduced in organization. Sometimes there can be new HR policies. Akash is suggesting I speak closer to the mic. Akash, is this better, sir? How's this? Okay.
This is better, much better. Hold it
All
there.
right.
Yeah.
All right. I'll keep it right here. Again, new organizational structures, There's always, a new SBU happening. XYZ has moved from heading this business to that business. You see all these announcements happening. Of course, change in business strategy is something that can happen all the time. People move from services to product types of businesses. Then, for those who are already in products, an entirely new series of products can come along. And as an XYZ, because I'm sure many of you are imagining things that you have witnessed in the places that you have consulted with or where you're working right now, where there are new initiatives, something brand new comes along. For example, on Thursday, we'll go we'll go vegetarian or something like that. All kinds of new fads come along. So then what happens? Is it simply a matter of announcements, or have you actually prepared the organization for what's coming? And that's the point of change management, is not to simply announce a change and just drift along and hope for the best, but actually as professionals, be very clear as to how to make this change actually permeate the system. Okay? All right. And ultimately, if you think about it, whatever happens at the top, and I say at the top, what I mean is that people are making all these changes, the new marketing approach, we just talked about mergers and acquisitions, etc. But it all boils down to individuals in an organization being affected, and also there's a need for that person to do their job differently. And that can't be taken for granted. That is actually the problem that all of us have to really think about this. Is that really a fair expectation? Right? So let's talk about that a little. Okay. So when you confront somebody with, saying that from tomorrow, you're going to start using this brand new, wonderful, ERP system, and our world will change, and we guys will become 20% more productive, and this will happen, and we take over the world. Those are the kinds of things. I'm sorry, revisit the process. Would you mind repeating your question? Somebody had a question. Okay, maybe I shouldn't be looking at that place. There are lots of questions popping up. I'll request Sandeep to guide me. So
Yeah,
this
I'll
is
help you there. Carry on. Yeah.
yes. I keep seeing these pop-ups and I get distracted. So I've got to watch that. So this is how people resist change. And actually, why should I talk about other people? Let's talk about me. I would be also probably doing exactly the same thing, right? Because fundamentally, all of us are tuned to avoid change. We already think we are perfect, things are just the way we are. And most of us do not like to be told that we need to change. I'm fine with recommending to you that you should change, but I am perfect. There's nothing wrong with me. So even if it sounds funny, the fact of the matter is most of us do operate like that, because it will be very difficult for us to operate in either way. So it's a matter of psychology and so on. So this is how we typically avoid this situation. And I want to give you a quick example that when many years ago, when I was at NEC in the US, I remember Anderson Consulting coming in, and they were going to conduct some kind of assessment of productivity, right? And we as young engineers did not like it, and moreover, these guys didn't approach us in the right way. So we did not cooperate. We said we don't have time for you. All these things that you're saying this way, that's how we used to answer. We don't think any change is necessary. We just fine, etc. It's always been this way. Why should I do it? And the other things, I don't like you. This initiative is too expensive. And very often people are going to give war stories. We have tried it before, this kind of stuff, and it has failed. So I'm sorry, it won't work. And this was an example of something we were trying to do once in Saudi Arabia at McDonald's. I'm mentioning it because it doesn't really matter. It's not a big deal. There was an ERP system that we were trying to implement, and there were some pockets of resistance. So we knew, we anticipated it, and then we did something about it. So wherever we as consultants go in, we know that people are not going to cooperate with us, because as consultants, what we're trying to do is introduce change. And therefore, people are on their toes. They don't like it. And it takes a lot of time for you to build bridges with everyone, so they at least listen to you and hopefully cooperate in the future. Okay? So now that I've mentioned all this, if I look at how projects are sized, how they're costed, and so on, and there's also an important point for you to think about. Um, People understand, if you see a Gantt chart, it says we do this, this particular activity for 2 months, something else for 6 months, and then there's this dependence, etc. The whole thing is clinical, it's mathematical, it's even correct in the sense that the sizing of the work is always correct. But almost always, organizational change management hardly ever factor. Now, they might factor it in a notional way. When I say notional, they'll say, oh, we'll think about people, we'll train them, etc., etc. But most of the time, you never see a change management professional actually accounted for and actually their costs included in this process, right? That's why I said here, most people don't want to pay for it because they think, it's just a soft thing. Anyone can do it. And that's really a very, very sad state of affairs. But as IT and L&D professionals, I want you to be very clear that this business of anyone can do it is false. Change management is a sophisticated subject which a lot of work has gone into, and you need to be a change management professional. You need to understand people, you need to understand tools, techniques, etc., and should know what to do about it. Okay, so this is what I'm saying. Most people don't want to pay for it because they think it's easy. Anyone can understand it. And yet we see a lot of projects fail because most of the time is gone in dealing with people and their resistance and why they complain and we don't want to do this, etc., etc. Right? So I hope this particular slide. I'm curious. I don't want you guys to respond right now, but please make a note if some of the things I've said over here resonate with you. I'll look forward to hearing about it later. Okay. Now, if you don't manage change properly, right? And I'll just take the example of the ERP system because that is a fairly standard kind of a system. Okay, this is the kinds of things that are going to happen. Project delays, and they are delayed because people don't want to cooperate, right? The example that I gave you of the Saudi Arabian client, we anticipated the delays. That was because a lot of key people who had been using the system, the previous system for years, did not want to change. So they were always missing at meetings, they were on leave, or they gave us wrong answers and so on. So project delays were inevitable, right? And that obviously cascades into missed milestones for the overall project because we did factor change management and consequently budget overruns, right? It was supposed to take 6 months, suddenly took 8 months, and that means money profitability goes down. Okay, and normally a lot of finger pointing is done. You should have done this, you should have thought about this, etc., etc. But nobody ever says, did you do a change management assessment at the beginning of the project? Nobody does that, or hardly anybody does that, because again, it's supposed to be an easy thing that anyone can have. Not true. Okay, and as a result of this, we have we work sometimes required on design. We go back and forth, etc. And ultimately, loss of work by the project team because you may be considered as having failed on the project, which is actually not true. It's just that we didn't pay enough attention to the change aspects and have a proper strategy to make sure that everyone impacted by change was factored in the whole process. Okay. Um, Sandeep, am I speaking too fast? I'm just checking with you, please. Is the pace okay? Is the volume all right?
No, this is fine. I think it's working all right. Please carry
All
on.
right. Okay. Thank you, Shifali. I can see you there. Thank you. Okay. That is as far as the project is concerned. Typical project. From an organizational risk perspective, you can obviously see that productivity will plunge, yeah, which translates to cost as well. We have seen a lot of valued employees leave because they get frustrated because they feel that the client is not cooperating or the management is not sensitive to their issues, etc., right? And then the quality of work also diminishes, the latter phase. So people are no longer motivated, right? And thereafter, from a risk perspective, if you don't look at change management, we have an impact on customers clearly because they think that we didn't we didn't anticipate issues well enough. Okay, there could be an impact on suppliers because suppliers are demanding, their fees, and we haven't finished the milestones. How can we pay them? So those kind of things happen. Overall morale declines both for you as well as your client because you see it's feeling of frustration, that nothing seems to be moving, what's going on, etc. And we are also adding to a legacy of failed change. Because this will, become a kind of a story for the future. Remember, we went to the client and we were supposed to do it in 6 months, but it became 1.5 years. Because everyone remember, and all the people around that project will always have a bad name, right? And of course, we talk about stress, confusion, fatigue. There have been any number of times they had to drag back, consultants from the US or the Middle East because they just couldn't take the delays anymore. Suddenly, the client became totally uncooperative because they weren't convinced we understood it. The other thing is about change saturation, and this is an important point, is you have to be very careful. There's only a capacity, a certain capacity that we have to absorb change, right? If there are too many things if there are too many initiatives happening within an organization, and all of them somehow have a way of impacting that one person, it is really going to create a difficulty. So on the one hand, we're doing ERP changes. Suddenly there's a whole new HR change. Guys, we're going to do this from now on. Things are going to be fantastic. Then the finance guys, payroll policies changes, or security changes. So everything happening at the same leads to difficulties in the organization being able to implement and take it forward. So timing these changes and giving people enough time to absorb change is a critical thing that we need to think about. Okay. Now, this, what you see, is a very classic, very simple and simple curve, and I'm going to give you a slightly better curve next slide. But this defines change. And this has got nothing to do with the organization. This even applies to me or to Sandeep or Rajat or anyone who is going to experience any kind of change, whether it's minor or major. Okay, let me take you through this. The first step is you get information that something has happened or will happen, right? So, for example, let's say again we're going to introduce work from home for everyone. Now, it might sound cool, or maybe maybe a better example would be you have to go back to work after 2 months, which is going to change everything from now on. Nevertheless, the first time when you hear some news which you're not prepared for, you can't believe it, right? This doesn't make any sense. It's so illogical. Why should it happen? That becomes anger. That how could these guys do this to us? Don't they understand that the situation is so bad? They're asking us to come back to work, whatever the case may be, right? Then you slowly adjust to the new reality that you have, okay? And finally, you accept it. Now, let me make it personal. All of us have lost, let's say, a parent, right, in our lifetime. Either your mother or father have moved on, right? So therefore, when the news first came to most of us, we said this can't be true. This is just a joke. Someone's playing a really bad joke. And then after that, for a period of a few days, we get into an anger mode where we said, why didn't they call the doctor? Why didn't the doctor respond properly? Why was the medication not given, etc., etc. Over a period of 2 or 3 weeks, we tried to imagine life without our father or mother, right? And then slowly, after a few weeks or months, sometimes years, depending on you, you accept the reality of the vacuum. Now, I've given you these two examples. One is a personal example and one is an organizational example. But in summary, this is a classic change curve that we go through for any event that affects us in our lives. Anything, anything. It's just that we may not notice it. We may just move from, the whole curve might move very, very fast, perhaps, but it does happen, right? So again, it could be your car has an accident or something else happens. Remember, of course, we're talking about changes which are not anticipated and maybe even slightly unpleasant. Obviously, if they're pleasant changes, that's a different matter. But in this particular case, we're talking about situations which are a little difficult for us to grasp. I'm getting some echo, requesting Sandeep or someone to look into it. Yeah? Okay. So I hope this curve made sense, and I want to just show it illustrated with the next slide is slightly better. Here we go. Okay. So this shows how it moves from shock to denial and a feeling of frustration, a feeling of self-pity that everything is, why is it me who has to suffer? How come it, maybe I should go and be an astrologer, etc., right? And then go into a set of depression. I just can't handle this kind of change. Maybe I'm too old, or I just can't work in this place anymore, whatever. And slowly there will be a period of going back to normal. Now, a clever change manager knows that every initiative must be thought through on these lines, right? Therefore, a CEO simply announcing something without actually thinking about the change implications is doing a disservice to the organization. So if you announce something that you're going to do this, it better be backed up with solid change management and thought process that will the organization absorb this change that I'm trying to do? How will it be taken, right? How do I plan for various kinds of reactions? When will I reach a state of acceptance and normalcy, right? So this is something we need to be aware of, that you have to anticipate this. Simply saying, everything will be e-learning, everything will work from home, or will not be working from home, or any of these things. Those are statements, those are grand statements. The devil is in the detail of what happens next. what happens to individuals impacted by all this. So I'm not going to go into details of this, but there is a very classic model called the ADKAR model. I will just describe it in some detail, but there's plenty of literature over here, and this describes the phases that individuals will go through when faced with change. It's a very detailed, highly mature model for change, and it's the tool for understanding how, why, when, and so on and so forth. And how does it? What does ADKAR mean? Here we are. Okay, but before I do that, in order for any change to be implemented, you need four things: a clear vision of what the end goal is to be. What is it going to be at the end of all this? Whether it's going to take 3 months, 6 months, or a year. At the end of 6 months, we will be in this position. Two, you need very strong leaders, okay, who are very clear about it and won't be easily affected by pressures of various kinds. Sometimes you have to, I'm sorry to use this word, bulldoze your way through. You have to be really strong about it that no matter how much of negativity I see in the system, I'm going to make sure I support this change. Three, you need tools. Okay, tools of various kinds to measure people's reaction. You might want to have other kinds of tools like facilitating, workshops of various kinds, provide training to people. So those are the ways in which you will make people accept that the organization has got a vision, and our leadership is telling us that by going to these various kinds of programs, they're preparing us for something for us to be able to meet the end vision and for us to be continue to be productive. Communication, I can't underemphasize this. Communication is key. Simply announcing it and just running away isn't going to make sense. Communication has to be very measured, tailored, and must go very carefully, figuring out at different stages in the cycle what words to use, what not to do. Right?
Vasudev,
Yes,
can I
Sandeep.
can I just come in for 1 minute?
Of
Actually,
course, sir.
there would be about what 75 participants now
Okay.
of
Okay.
varying background. So while you explain ADKAR, can you also
Yeah.
link it to a particular example? Could be any company or any organization
I
that you
will.
had experience. That will
Sure.
help. Thank you.
I'll do that right away, sir. Yeah. So all I was pointing out was just a reminder. I just started describing ADKAR. I was just pointing out that ADKAR is a well-known model. It's not the only model, and some people might even say it's very theoretical. That's fine. Different organizations have modified the ADKAR framework to suit their vision of how change needs to be done. But anyway, it's a very, very sound foundation. And all I'm saying is for all of these models and whatever to work, you have to have ammunitions, which is a vision, very strong leadership, certain tools, and a very good communication protocol. Without all this stuff, your change management initiative, no matter how brilliant you are, whatever the idea is, will fail. Right. Sorry. Okay, so now we have, these are the five, this is ADKAR. Okay, A stands for awareness. First is you need to communicate or you need to make everyone aware of the need for change. Okay, so like the situation has changed, COVID has happened, something else has happened, whatever it is, guys, I'm sure you all appreciate this. Maybe our profits are going down or our competitors are doing much better than us, whatever the case is. Communication in a reasonably frank way with your rank and file is critical. Okay. Second is you have to inject is a better word, in everyone a desire to participate and support the change. You just don't announce it and say, guys, change. It won't happen. People need to be taken through the change curve that I described, right? It is going to take time. You can't fast forward and compress things and say, change from tomorrow. People won't change from tomorrow, right? You will make them feel enthusiastic about that. The third thing is, okay, everyone says, yeah, okay, I'll change. But how do I change? And here is where K comes in, which is the knowledge of how to change, which means, for instance, we might say that we're going to train you on your new technology or do something different, right? Finally, we have to implement those required skills and behaviors. There's one thing to be trained in, and finally, you have to know how to implement those skills and behaviors in different ways, right? Reinforcement is a critical thing, and all of us in the facilitation and training game understand this really well. Training works, classroom sessions work. Reinforcement is critically important for people to sustain the change. So this, in brief, is ADKAR. If you do a Google search, you'll find terabytes of knowledge about information about the ADKAR model. So I wish you well for that. Now going back to Sandeep's very kind interjection there, right? Let me take you through this example of the Saudi customer that I was talking about, and how we implemented ADKAR, and I will still give myself only 80% or 90% as marks to success. So there was this client who had a financial ERP. Okay. Now, this ERP was actually very poorly written, poorly designed and implemented, and so on. For some interesting reason, the CFO and the CEO were completely on board with the need for change. They said, guys, we are not getting the reports we want. We need them faster. There seem to be errors all over the place. This is something completely wrong with it, right? So they brought us in, and of course, we did our due diligence, and we said, here are the challenges that you guys have, and this won't work beyond this point. So we made sure that we slowly had a little campaign to make everyone aware that a new ERP system is necessary for the following reasons. Reports are delayed, the data is incorrect, etc., etc. And as a result of this, we are not being able to respond properly to the market, and so on and so forth. Okay. Now, that's easier said than done, because, as I said, many times people who are going to be impacted by change are not necessarily going to be by the reason for change. Even if they become aware of the need for change, they may not wish to change. And the reason could be that they're doing the same thing year after year, and they are really scared of any kind of upheaval that will make them do their job in a different way. So now we move to the next part of desire. How do you help them to participate and support the change? There are many methods to do that. The first one is that in any group of people, and I'm going to show you a curve, maybe 5 or 6, uh, okay, processes. There's a question that came. I'll come back to that. Many people have a kind of a curve where a few people are what's the word for it? Highly enthusiastic. They love to do stuff, whatever it is. They love it. And of course, at the very end of the curve, there's a bunch of guys who simply do not want to support anything that happens. So you find those people who are the enthusiasts, you train them, and you kind of seed them in the organization. So they take forward the desire to participate. This is a far better method than having people like us who are external to the system come in and tell people how to change. Because they don't trust us, and so therefore it's better that somebody from within the organization is the person who's a seed of desire, who will spread the word everywhere. Now that it's done, we tell people that, don't worry. Yes, there's going to be a new ERP system based on new technology, new this and new that, etc. Okay, and this is what we're going to do. We're going to train you about the new accounting systems, new financial systems, new technology, and here is the training calendar for all these kinds of things. Okay, so that when you go, you'll be able to learn all these things. And that made everyone feel much better. Okay, these guys have actually thought about it, and they're not leaving it to us to go and learn stuff on our own, right? And finally, we allowed them to start experimenting with it and see, what will happen if you do this, etc. Obviously, that's what's called, trying it out on a kind of a separated, safe system where they can try it out and see whether it's working or not. And when they're ready, then they actually go ahead and get into the production system in real life. Finally, you have to reinforce it. So after 2 months, 3 months, we should take polls. Guys, have you learned it? How are you feeling now? Etc. etc. And we looked at the response. I'm still feeling uncertain, or I'm feeling great, or I still need some more training, etc. etc. So as you can see, these things are fantastic. Models are great. Frameworks are wonderful, but they all take time. They do take time. So there's no one who says, the entire organization will just flip like this and change overnight. It's not going to happen. You're going to need to go through the change curve, and you're going to need to overlay the ADKAR model on all this so that the desired change will be a success. Okay, I hope this is helpful. As I pointed out to you, there's a lot of material on ADKAR, so I would recommend you go and change it. Again, as I want to tell you, ADKAR is just one model, a very popular model, but many organizations have gone ahead and tried to implement their own, try to change things based on their requirements, whatever those might be. So again, keep in mind that usually from awareness to reinforcement on the x-axis, and from business need to post implementation. So it's going to take this, and this is just the same, the description of the very same thing that I'm talking about. the cycle of time from awareness to reinforcement, if you do it carefully, can move from the state of business need to post implementation in a nice, well managed way, provided you handle change management in a sensitive manner. Okay. And this is what I was talking about. This is what I was talking about, right? In every group of people, even in this very group of people. So, Sandeep, just a question for you. How many people do we have right now in this group? 75? About? Plus
Yeah,
minus?
about 72. Yeah,
Okay,
70,
72.
72. Yeah.
So 72. So, as all of us are trainers, we know that every group is somehow some kind of a normal curve, right? So even among these 72, you're going to find this kind of thing based on various parameters, right? As I have seen in my class, there'll always be some people who are extraordinarily enthusiastic. They love it. Whatever it is, they love it. Whatever it is, they love it, right? And then there are some people who are somehow not very interested in being there, right? And they probably feel that they are there because someone's asked them to go there or whatever the case may be. And then there's a whole set of behaviors of people who are early adopters, early majority, and some people who are forced. So I'll give you an example of this. But the point of this is that you have to tailor communication along the whole change curve based on the other adopter categories. So let's talk about the same example I gave of trying to implement a new ERP system. All right. So here's the situation. There is an existing ERP system which everyone's used to. Now you're going to try to introduce a new ERP system. So what do? You don't announce it and say from tomorrow. I've talked about that. So what you do is you go and find those guys who have that kind of personality. You have to identify them who are willing to try out stuff. So you guys say, reach out to them. We're trying something new and different, and it's going to really do things like magic. And it's really fun. Are you guys interested in trying it out? They say, yes, certainly. Give it to us. So those guys will start. They'll try out the process. Okay, and then they will usually be very enthusiastic. The personalities are such that they say, wow, this is great stuff, man. Remember that report that used to take me and Sharma, it used to take us 15 days to do. Now we can do it in 5 minutes. It's just amazing stuff. I love it. So the early adopters are always people who are waiting for somebody else to take the first initiative. So they see these guys being enthusiastic, and they jump on board as well, right? They say, okay, we'll also our communication to them will be, look, guys, there's been a pilot study going on. Would somebody else like to join the group? You want to find out what you think? And now they're feeling safe. They will join. Now, an early majority, the communication you can start making to people is we are in the process of rolling out a new IT system. It will take about a month or two, and we welcome all of you to come on board and learn. Here is the training calendar, blah blah blah. So the tone of the communication changes just a little bit, becoming more formal now because slowly everyone's getting it. People, this ERP system will roll out. So early majority is seeing that as in this particular case, about 16% of the people have already started using it and saying good things. They will sign on. Now the communication changes. Okay, it's more formal and says our ERP system will be rolled out by June 15th. Okay, everyone is now required to take up training as soon as possible and switch over to the system before it's too late. That's when the
Dave,
great majority. Sorry.
quick time check. Quick
Yes.
time check. Another 5 minutes, I would say. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Before we take questions.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. I'll go through it. Don't, okay, I'll try to compress the curve. All right. So late majority is the ones who are finally pushed in. The laggards are those who are giving a final warning. Guys, if you don't switch to the new system in 2 days, sorry, we are just turning it off. So I hope you got the point. Okay, so this is the kind of thing we're talking about. Establishing a sense of urgency is important, right? Creating a vision, communicating the vision. Communication, I'm sorry, is the bottom line, the most critical part of the change management process. Right? It's critically important. So what I want to do is I want to talk about the DICE model, and this will eat into my 15 minutes, but that's fine. This is what I was talking about. Take any particular initiative that you're about to start or you're about to start working on. This is a predictive model for figuring out whether your initiative will change. So I'm going to open it up quickly because Sandeep has warned me that I don't have much time. This is called the DICE model, okay? And this is what it's all about. T stands for the duration between two milestones in that project. Okay, you're rolling out an initiative. Obviously, you have a Gantt chart or project plan. So D is the duration between two milestones. I stands for the ability of the team to execute. Right? Are they well trained? Do they have the knowledge? Do they have the enthusiasm? Can they do it? Commitments is the commitment of the sponsors, C1, and the commitment of those who are impacted. Now that, as you can see, is a very important one, because if the sponsors are not that committed, or the people impacted are not that committed, we're going to have problems. And the effort. So we'll talk about this in just a moment, because the next slide will show some details. Once you add up these numbers, between scores are between 1 and 4. So the dice score is D plus 2I plus 2C1 plus C2 plus E. If you get about 13 or less than 13, empirically, your project is likely to be a success. If it is more than 13 and up to 20, there are some weak areas that can be fixed with a little bit of thought, and I will show it to you in just a minute, right? If it is more than 20, you are in big trouble, and if this problem is not probably going to take off. Let me explain this in just a second. Here we are. So please take up your project, and let's do the dice score for your project. Okay. Here it is. Duration between two milestones. If it is less than 2 months, it is 1. You give a score of 1. Okay. 2 to 4 months is 2. 4 to 8 months is 3, etc. Basically, lower the score, better for the project is my point. Lower the dice score, the greater the chance of success. Integrity, which is the ability of the team to execute, which means they're well-trained, motivated, blah, blah, blah. Very good is 1, poor is 4. Commitment of the team sponsors, okay? If it's 1, they really, really want this stuff. And if they say, I don't have time today, why don't you ask, Gupta, who's sitting in that room, to send out a letter? If you can tell that they're not very interested, reluctant, then give it 4. Commitment of those impacted. People are eager to make this change. Okay, man, I really want to try out this system. This looks fantastic. And those who say, oh gosh, there'll be lots of bugs, man, I don't want to get into it. You guys go ahead, hum dekhenge baad. If they do that, that's 4. Effort. This is very important. People are already busy or perceive themselves to be busy. You expect them to give 10% more of effort, that's fine. More than 10 starts becoming a bit crazy. Okay, people will not cooperate. They say this is just too much work for it. I've just got another work to do. All right. So this is how you calculate your dice score. So that was a quick thing, and as I said, this is a predictive model for the success. Okay. Would you therefore do me a favor and just quickly take a minute, okay, to come up with your dice score? I'm going to show you the formula, which is at the bottom left, right? I'm going to give you a minute to make those calculations. I'll be quiet.
Excuse me.
Yes, sir.
Hi, this is
Yes, yes, sir.
I think while all are busy in calculating their score on the matrix that you have given, may I request one thing, that see, we are passing through a very important change time, right?
Yes,
Maybe
indeed.
during this lockdown period and post-lockdown period. So
Correct.
can you put it in a very simple way with whatever theory you have discussed? I think it's very a kind of high level of thought that you have been sharing. That is fantastic.
Okay.
But can you simply put it in a nutshell, because the time is not much left. So can you put it in a nutshell that during this period and post this period, how these models are going to help us in terms of some actionables, right?
Sure.
So in that way, would you please elaborate? I think that this will help us. Yeah.
Sure. I will make an
You
attempt.
just like
I'll make an attempt, sir. I'll make an attempt. Okay. Sandeep, go back.
shot.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sure, I will do that, sir. Okay, so shall I continue, sir? So with that, I hope you've calculated some scores. Those of you who had less than 13, you're all fine. Beyond 13, you need some areas of weaknesses. Go back and find out where the problems are. you have a problem with duration, integrity, etc., etc. So take a look, get back in touch with me, and I will help you to open it up a little bit, okay, and figure out what needs to be done. So with that, I'm just going to stop. This is basically my last slide. I will answer Mr. Sen's question in just a moment. Quickly, change is inevitable. All of us right now are going through one of the most extraordinary periods of human history in terms of change. Okay, so all the rules are certainly being shaken up completely, right? So you're seeing that right now. It's not theoretical anymore; it's actually happening. So while you adjusting to change, you will follow a predictable path. So, Mr. Sen Gupta, even now, if you think about how you were on the first week of the lockdown versus how you are right now, I can tell you, I am fairly sure, I hope I'm right, that we have slowly started adjusting and kind of managed to figure out how to deal with the 6 or 7 weeks of the change that we have experienced. Right? It was unbelievable to begin with. Now all of a sudden, we're quite happy with our not happy, we've adjusted to our new reality, and probably many of us are looking forward to this continuing for a lot of time. So the predictable path does go ahead to any change that is required. So if we manage to come this far, we will certainly survive. Right? So it will be successful if you plan carefully and manage the process intelligently. Like I said, figure out who are the, how to make people. I don't want to use the word empowered because the word empowered is very, very misused all the time. But basically, people should understand that you have thought through how to handle this change very, very well. In some cases, organizations have had no choice but to actually say goodbye because they can't deal with the change. Their entire fundamental of the business has been altered. But in other cases, people have made changes and they have been relatively successful. I gave you a very simple example of those restaurants which were not working on Swiggy before, they're doing it now. Okay, so
Yes,
finally, sorry, you have a question? Can I finish this? As a training
Uh,
professional, you must.
Mr. Vasudev, I have a question for you. Hello.
Yes, just a moment. Just a minute. My last point here. I'll take your question, Vinny. Please bear with me for
Yeah.
a moment, right? So, as I said, you have to be very sensitive and study how change is impacting you. So, for example, I can tell you one of the things that I'm fairly sure is happening is that many L&D professionals, they are themselves not sure of what they need to do. They don't know. And your job as a person over here, facilitator, is to actually sit and work with them. Many of them don't understand platforms. They don't know how their own people will deal with all their training being done online. I've had a situation where one organization has had to postpone it because their people refuse to do online training, which I think is silly. They're going to have to deal with it. But certainly, you're going to have to work with those professionals and help them to absorb change and help them to learn to communicate with their audience. Maybe that's what they need. The communication isn't strong enough or whatever, and do some pilot studies and those kinds of things and slowly introduce them to this new way of working. One more example I want to give is I did a proposal writing workshop about 3 weeks ago, right? And there the problem that everyone was having was difficulty in dealing with the training platform, which was something called GoToMeeting, right? So a lot of people had difficulty initially; they didn't know what to do, etc. By the end of the day, and certainly by the second day, everyone knew exactly what is to be done. So people do adapt. Looking back, that particular situation we could have handled better if we had taken the time to teach people how these new platforms are going to work, deal with issues of security, IP, and those kinds of things, right? So I wanted to stop over here, and I think I'd like to ask Sandeep if you want to help me with answering taking any
Mini,
questions.
very quickly with your question, we got to be short and snappy. Yeah, over to you, Mini. Mini had a
Vinny, go
question.
ahead, please.
Mini, can you please speak up? Unmute your mic and speak up, please.
Yeah, I have a question. How do we influence leadership, okay, to adapt to this change? Because both the models talk about influencing change through improving knowledge, creating a desire, etc. But the point is, in today's scenario, how do we influence leadership to accept these ideas?
So, Mini, here is my counterpoint to you. If not now, then never again, because right now all the leadership is totally shaken. Okay, I think they also don't have the answer for many things. If you ask me,
True.
this is a perfect time for you to go and zoom in. Okay, like a hawk, zoom in and tell them, guys, if you want this to work, this is what needs to be done. This is my simple suggestion for you. I think they are the most vulnerable at this moment, and they are most open to any ideas, suggestions, because I think they already don't. So if you're able to take these ideas and suggestions to them, I think they'll actually be grateful. So I think
Vasudev,
this is different. from pre-COVID, where management may have thought through everything. Now I think management honestly is not, doesn't know many things, and therefore you will be welcomed and said, thanks for giving me these suggestions. So please take this as an opportunity. I don't think it's going to be a showstopper at this moment in time. This is my honest opinion.
Vasudev,
Yes.
can we quickly now? Yeah, so one good analogy would be this, that
Yes.
you are like a captain in the ship of a which is in the middle of a storm, and even though you are the captain of the ship, you are on the ship, so you cannot see what's really happening. Whereas a consultant is like on the lighthouse, and from the lighthouse you can actually see the ship as well as the sea, which is under the storm. So
Sure.
maybe that's an analogy that can help for consultants.
Sure.
Yeah, moving on quickly to another question. So which has come is, what is that press key? If you can just elaborate the anagram.
That's just an organization. It's like IEEE or whatever.
Yeah, you can Google it. I'm sure it's there. It's a model.
Yeah.
Somebody mentioned about the SARA model. SARA model to resting change. Is it somewhat similar to the change curve?
I wouldn't know, because there's so many different models. As far as I think, ADKAR is the most well-known, respected. I'm not saying others are not. I'm saying everybody knows ADKAR. All other models, if you ask me, tend to be variations of the same thing, adapted to local situations.
Right. So one question is, this that a lot of times organizations are not able to appreciate the impact of change.
Yeah.
So what would be some of the measures? Is there any objective metrics on which you can measure the impact of change?
Well, first of all, like I said, this DICE model is one in which you can predict change, right? And unfortunately, if you think about us existing in the corporate world, there are many different kinds of battles being fought for all levels. None of us necessarily win these battles, So if you talk about influencing leadership, influencing people about change, etc., etc., I think it's going to be an ongoing battle, because people have different priorities, desires, etc., etc. So I don't think there's one magical formula where I say this is what's going to happen and people will immediately bite it. No, you will have to keep guiding them, keep feeding them information. Talk to the project teams and convince them about the value of change management. Look at other metrics. Your quality department most likely has metrics about projects that have failed, projects that have succeeded, and you can drill down a bit and see whether there was a change management initiative, how well that went, etc., etc. So I'm afraid, as a professional, we're going to have to face this kind of a challenge throughout. There is no one single thing which everyone will wake up and say, yes, I got it.
Thank you, Vasudev. And one more question which is coming up because of this current situation. There are two questions actually. I'm putting it together. One is that because everybody wants, you mentioned that change takes time, and everybody understands that. But given the current situation, a lot of companies are talking about agility. So is there any way that we can accelerate the change process? So that's part one of the question. And the second is, given the post-pandemic scenario, which is very unique, this is not comparable to the, let's say, the scenarios we have faced earlier. So is there anything special about change in the current scenario? These two things.
Yeah. Okay, so the second point is post-pandemic. I don't know, is there ever going to be a post-pandemic? I really don't know. We're right in the middle of it, extension after extension. Will it go for 1 more year, 2 more years? So I really don't know when it's going to happen, when this beautiful situation will change. But as you can see, everything, and I started from the very first slide, everything has changed, especially our social norms, how we interact with each other. So that's all gone for a toss. So I don't have any great words of wisdom for that, very honestly, because this has also changed the way we look at our own families, how we operate socially, small units, the kind of suspicion we now have of everybody. Why is that person not wearing a mask? Don't have you washed your hands? So there's a whole societal, cultural change that's going to happen, which is, I don't think I am competent enough to make some kind of a graphic description of how that's going to affect all of us in the future. It's evolving. It's just changing in a bizarre way. Now, as far as accelerating the change thing is concerned, all that I'm seeing, I can tell you one thing. I think people are already getting it. I think the word acceleration is too loaded, and it suggests too many positive things which I don't want to be part of. Okay, it suggests that somehow by doing some magic, everything can be compressed. I don't think that's the case. What I can say, which also goes back to Louis' point, is I think people all of a sudden are very sensitive and have started adapting. They started adapting. Yesterday, for example, I had a call with a cybersecurity company. Okay, And I noticed that all their collateral, the way they were talking about things, etc., was already in tune with what's happening. So they had dumped all the collateral, the way they communicate, the case studies they're going to do, etc. They had already started making those changes in the business communication, in the way they're trying to sell to people. So right now, people do reach out to me and say, can you have a work from home solution to facilitate design thinking, to facilitate such and such. So clearly, people have got it already. Okay, they have somehow got it. I don't think beyond us, as I said, dealing with our L&D counterparts and CEOs wherever we're doing consulting. I think this is the right time for us to talk about change management to them, because if not now, then never again. Because this is a once in a lifetime scenario. And nobody can claim to be saying that, so what, nothing's changed. Everything has changed, so they will get it right away. Okay, that's all I can say. So let's not talk about accelerating. That would be a wrong inference. Somehow, as it is, we are struggling to even adapt right now. So I don't think we want to accelerate. Right now.
Okay, thank you so much, Vasudev. I think we are just about finished our time. And may I request, to summarize the discussion, obviously it was a very useful and very helpful discussion, especially the DICE model. I would encourage everyone to try it out. And if you need more help, Vasudev is there to help us. So can you also give your scores on, in the chat box in terms of the facilitation, how you liked it? Any other comments are always welcome. We have just a minute, maybe if there's any one last question from the audience. Okay, would you like to say something in conclusion, Vasudev? Yeah, somebody.
No, it's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure, interacting with all of you. I shall look forward to hearing from you. And I think, as I said, this is a unique, unbelievable scenario we all are in right now. So I suppose it's timely to some extent. And otherwise, normally change management is soft and cute subject. But now I think people actually look at it. Okay, so thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, from the organizers, Rajat, any concluding remarks?
I think the session went very well, and there are a lot of information. Now we are looking out for a lot of changes, and it's important to listen something about the changes. And there's nothing more to say about changes, because the person who we have and a lot of questions by a lot of participants that really motivated this whole speaker to speak more on this. So thanks so much, and I wish to see tomorrow all of you. And tomorrow we are going to have Mr. Gautam Gupta, who is the national head on Work Better, and he's going to speak on the influencing skill. So it's a very interesting subject. The time we have our influencing skill tomorrow at 5 o'clock. So by that time, thank you so much for joining. See you tomorrow.
Thank you all. Bye.
Thank you all. Stay safe. Take care.
Thank you, Rajat. Thank you, Mr. Vasudev. Thank you, Team Scoopin.